taking over our wetlands.
Welcome.
There are aliens.
Just gonna have a little sing along. Feel free.
There are aliens.
I'm gonna mute myself because Roddy does it much better. We'll put a link in.
But these aliens don't come from outer space. Well, they come here from our very own planet. But from far, far away, and they're strangers here. These introduced species can be a pretty big problem, 'cause there's nothing very much in nature that's able to stop them. The invading aliens are everywhere. Introduced species around the world, my friend, you better best beware. Zebra, mussel, gypsy moth, and purple loose stripe. These are just a few, they might give you those invading alien blues. Now in some of our wetlands grows a pretty purple flower that makes lots of seeds, and so it grows too well. It chokes out all the space that's needed by wetlands wildlife. It's a pretty little killer with the name of purple loosestrife. The invading aliens are everywhere. Introduced species around the world, my friend, you better best beware. The zebra, mussel, gypsy moth, and purple loosestrife. These are just a few, they might give you those invading alien blues.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining our Wednesday afternoon dance party.
And I'm sorry, I was going to try and do an 80s fade out, but I failed. It was going to be really like, shh.
I was wondering what happened there.
I'm sorry. I was just like, right, that's the fun over. Now we must learn.
Well, welcome, everybody. I'm sure we'll have some more people joining us later. And we are recording this because it's a beautiful day, and we know some people are outdoors and they'll be watching it afterwards. So I am just going to start sharing the slideshow, and we will introduce ourselves and get started. Okay. Can you see that okay?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody to this very exciting webinar workshop. We're going to do some fun things that you can join us in. So it's not a true webinar. We've got some interactive things. It's Invasive Species Action Month. And I'm very excited to be working with Jade Barrow from the Outdoor Learning Store. And I'm Stephanie, and with the Invasive Species Council of BC. And we'll be sharing some activities that you can do with your learners and whatever age to take action and learn about invasive species and connect with these beautiful places where we live and make a difference in your community. So Jade, on to you.
So hi, everyone. If you've not met me before, I spend a fair bit of time doing sort of virtual workshops and things. I'm an environmental educator. I'm joining you today from the traditional and unceded territories of the Snakes, the people of the bull trout. I'm down here where the cursor is next to this beautiful sturgeon nose canoe, which is a piece of technology that the Snakes and the Tanaha to the east both utilize from carving out whole cedar trees and utilizing birch bark for waterproofing. I live right where this is the Columbia River. This is a map actually from the autonomous Snakes, red meaning the blood of life, as opposed to blue as we have on colonial maps. I live here just where the big bend of the Columbia River, Skahikwitin, in the Inselsheen Sinaitic language. It's Kihikan, where the ridge lines meet the water, and I'm nestled between the Selkirks and the Monashis. The colonial names, unfortunately, the traditional indigenous names for this place have been lost, but I live where those two ridge lines meet the water. This place is also incredibly special and has been stewarded, and especially the native plants, by the Shuswap Lakes people to the west, the Okanagan Silks to the south, more of a grasslands influence and knowledge, and the Tinaha First Nations to the east. So I'm extremely honoured to be a guest in this place and live and learn with the land here. Thanks, Stephanie. Oh, just a little bit about who I sort of work with most of the time. I have a few hats, but I spend most of my time working with the Outdoor Learning Store. So we're a charitable, non-profit social enterprise offering, we think, excellent outdoor learning equipment and resources, and 100% of proceeds go back into supporting outdoor learning non-profit initiatives. So we offer free workshops, online workshops, all kinds of different training, but if you're looking for ethically sourced, environmentally packaged outdoor learning resources, everything from sit pads to binoculars and clipboards to pedagogical books, we hope to be your one-stop shop. So you can check us out at outdoorlearningstore.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Jade. So I'm Stephanie Weinstein, and I've been an environmental educator for a long time. Starting when I was a teenager, and then worked in conservation and in biology, and then came back as a parent when I was starting to focus more on my own children, and got back into what I love, is working with kids and doing environmental education. And I'm here on the traditional unceded territories of the Lekwungen peoples. This is the land of the smoked herring on southern Vancouver Island in Victoria. And these flowers here on the left, the Garry Oak Meadows are filled with them right now. They're camas, which supports amazing biodiversity. That's the most one of the most endangered ecosystems in Canada. But it also was a food system. It was highly managed ecosystem with incredible knowledge about how to manage and support these by weeding and burning and harvesting in sustainable ways that supported families for many generations, and was a trade item and also a staple food that was roasted in pits. The tuber, the bulb of the camas flower. And you could see in the artwork there that right now is the moon of the camas harvest, and that is the from the Wasanic First Nation in Saanich Peninsula. And I am an educator with the Invasive Species Council of BC. You can read our mission here. We work to take action to build healthy landscapes, habitats, and communities through education and responsible practices to prevent the spread of invasive species. And we work with partners across Canada, into other countries in the US, and with partnerships are key to our work with many different levels of government, with First Nations communities, and it's a fantastic organization, a great place to work, and we have lots of wonderful resources that we're going to be sharing with you through our education program called Invasive-Wise Education. So we wanted to hear from you. So if you wanted to put in the chat something special about the place that you're coming from today, this graphic is from HCTF, Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation Education, showing the eco-provinces of BC. Some of you might be coming from outside of BC, but maybe the traditional territory that you are coming from today, or some special connection that you have to where you are and the ecosystems where you live. And I think we also have a link to this document. It's a great one to share with students as well. I think it might be in the chat, possibly. All right. There we go. I'll just wait a couple more minutes.
While people
for a
are
second.
writing, I know that it's hard to think and do things, but we did mention that having a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, even if it's goose, good on one side, paper, and a pencil or some other drawing or writing implement will be really helpful for later. I will give you a couple of minutes later, but just thought I'd throw that up. Cottonwoods are so fragrant, lovely.
Okay, well, feel free to continue to look at the map, or if we share it, or share in the chat as we go on. We also have a couple of polls. So I'm just going to advance, and I'm so grateful that we have Megan here with us today, and she'll be, oh, maybe I have to share the polls. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to share the polls. Well, thanks anyway, Megan.
I can share them if you want, or if you
No,
want to share them, either way.
I got it right here. Okay,
Perfect.
so this is just to get to know who we have here today in the audience. So what best describes your educator role? So often there's a variety of ways that people are educators. So whichever one makes is where you are usually, or where you are today. We got 50%. I'll just wait a couple more minutes.
Have some sort of dramatic background music while we do.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we need Remy singing again.
Yeah, that's it.
We can... Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right, here we go. Share results. So it looks like we have primarily elementary is the winner, and non-formal educators. Those, oh, and other. Curious about the others. We also have some secondary teachers. So welcome everybody. Put in the chat if you have some other role. I'll be really interested in knowing how you connect with people around invasive species or action projects. All right, now we've got another poll. Let's see. No, back, sorry. Here we go. Can you see the poll or no?
We're on the first one again.
The experience level of knowledge? Okay.
No, we're on educator role. So if you can go back.
Oh, I think I have to go to the next question. Question 1. Now I want to go to question 2. Now do you see it? No.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
It's letting me control it. Can I try?
Yeah, you try.
It says it's already been launched. So
Yeah,
but I don't see it.
Okay, well,
It's
I can.
It's a second poll. I don't know if you guys are in the one, and if you hit back, I can
It
see
won't let
it.
me
It's not
launch
letting
it.
me. It won't let me launch it either now, and I'm not sure why.
Okay,
Maybe
well,
you could just let us know in the chat.
yeah, the question is, how would you describe your experience or level of knowledge of invasive species? So 1, are you just starting to learn about them? You could put a 1 in the chat. 2, can you name and recognize some common invasive species in your region? That's number 2.
Okay, it should have
3.
launched now. I think we had to end the last one.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. We'll do it in the chat. Oh, it launched now. Okay, great. I'll read it out
technology.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, we've got a couple more people waiting. maybe you put it in the chat already. So I'm going to share this. And yeah, so quite a variety, everything from just starting to teaching about them. So that's great. I hope that we'll have something for everybody, no matter where you are on your experience and learning journey with learning about and taking action on invasive species. Okay, over to you, Jade.
Fun. Okay, I know it's really hard whenever we're learning about the environment and outdoors and species within our ecosystem sitting inside behind screens, and I really understand the irony of that. And so as part of this, I'm hoping that perhaps we can just take a moment firstly to just sort of ground ourselves in this learning space, because I think one of the biggest things that I'm learning in my relationships with my Indigenous elders or knowledge keepers is that ceremony and that intention behind what we do is really important. And so it's okay, you know, just to turn up or to take students outside and just spend time outside. That's a win. But if there is an intention of connection, of building connection, of sharing respect, of reciprocity and relationship, that really are the sort of key points for me of Indigenous perspectives, but also of stewardship, and the two are really the same for me, then the intention we set with the work we do, with the learning that we do, is everything. So before we play the video, I wonder if you might all just take a second to close your eyes, feel your body in your chair or whichever, wherever you're sitting or lying down, if you are, where your body touches the chair, where perhaps your feet press on the ground. And we can just take one big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth or nose. And we'll do that 2 more times. Breathing in this place and breathing out anything that we don't need anymore, or anything that's not related to this moment. Breathing in energy and letting go of stress. And then you can gently blink open your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to just to sort of pay attention to the video. Some beautiful things. It is there's some music and nature that's based around where I live. And just have a look, and I'll do a little bit of talking over the top. Thanks, Stephanie. So I think learning about invasive species or our ecosystems is more than just science about what's important and biodiversity. Video is a little bit laggy, but that's okay. I think all of the work that I'm doing with land-based learning is connecting into the spirit of a place, its history, which relates to invasive species through the colonial environmental shifts that have happened with the bringing of invasive species into a place. It's a moment of appreciation for things that are beautiful, for perhaps the positives that humans have brought as well as the negatives, providing optimism and uplifting thoughts even in the face of devastation. That's the riverbank that was flooded by the creation of hydroelectric dams. A space where we recreate. Invasive species are connected to that, but we don't want to stop people having access to beautiful places. We just want it to be done in a respectful and responsible way. There's a majesty from understanding a place that, for me, is this two-eyed seeing. That's Elder Albert Marshall's concept of Western scientific knowledge, which I think is the basis for a lot of our work, and the Indigenous perspectives. And so I hope that as you go about these action projects, as you take time with your students, that as I'm learning to do it's not just about here's the lesson plan and we're going to follow this and we're going to do this, but actually just creating a space for wonder and appreciation and respect that will change their emotions about this place and lead them towards a more sort of environmentally stewarded lifestyle. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Jade. That was beautiful. I'm curious if anyone noticed any invasive species in the video, because there were some. You could share in the chat, perhaps. And I hope the sound was okay. Yeah. We have a couple more videos that we'll be sharing. So as Jade showed in that beautiful video, I think everybody that's here with us today is coming in from British Columbia, but I've lived in lots of places in the world, as I know Jade has as well, and each place has its own incredible diversity and ecosystems. And here in BC, we're very fortunate to, you can see the map on the lower left, those are the different biogeoclimatic zones. So we have incredible diversity of ecosystems from the coast all the way to alpine, rainforest, semi-desert grasslands, and all of this means incredible diversity of biodiversity of species, more than any other province in Canada. We have the vast majority of Canada's plants, mammals, butterflies, reptiles, amphibians, and breeding birds, and the global range for many different species. So all of this can really be impacted by invasive species. The threat of invasive species is significant to biodiversity, as well as to the economy and to communities. So I'm just going to share, this is a part of our website that I want to share with you, which is a great introduction to why invasive species matter that you can share with your students. So to find it, and I just learned some of our own staff weren't even aware of this website because it's pretty new, but you go to take action and then what's the big deal? So especially for older learners, this can be a great place to start. We also have some lesson plans that are helpful for younger students too. There's one called Why I Care About Invasive Species, and it includes quiz and videos and some games. But this website kind of talks about a lot of the reasons why invasive species matter, because sometimes in the press people say, well, they're moving in and this is our answer to some environmental problems, but actually they really cause a lot of very serious harm, and so we can do what we can to prevent them. And so there's the climate change connection, impacting these traditional, cultural, spiritual plants and uses that have been here for thousands of years. So we've got some videos here about some Indigenous communities, information about some of the most harmful invasive species in BC that caused $65 million just from these 6. And then you can click on to get more information about them and so on. So lots of great information on this webpage. And I just wanted to highlight one thing here, because even people who often work and teach about invasive species can sometimes get a little bit surprised about some definitions, and it's important to know what we're talking about. So invasive species have 2 different elements. One is that they're introduced, so they're from far away. They're not from here. They're not native species, and they cause harm. So wherever they were native, they would have been okay because they're part of that ecosystem. They've evolved there, but when they're introduced, they're not part of the food web where they've been introduced. They don't have the pathogens, predators, diseases, and parasites that would keep their numbers in check. And so they cause all these harm. As opposed to native species are indigenous to a given region or ecosystem. So they're part of the food web. They have all these pathogens and predators that keep their numbers in check. And an ecosystem with many native species is resilient to to change and to stresses. And then very important to know is not everything that is introduced causes harm. So not everything that's introduced to BC or to an area from outside is an invasive species because it doesn't cause harm. So many of our food species and so on. So that's a really important concept to get across. And I'm going to go back to slides because we're going to do a little game. So I'm just going to skip through these. Yeah, so it's oh, I guess I wanted to talk about reconciliation. Yeah, just connecting to the land and understanding the impacts that invasive species have had, like Jade said, is a really important part of reconciliation. So starting to know where species came from, how they got here, and what their impacts are, and restoring back to some indigenous native species is a really wonderful way to start student learning and to connect to place and to make a difference. So getting to know your place, what is from here and what was introduced and what is invasive? Is it from here or from away? We have a lesson plan that has lots of, you can do this as a game, as a running game, where you have one area where you have from here, one area that's from away, show pictures of different species, have people run from one to the other. And if it's from away, is it native or is it invasive? So we'll put in the chat the from here, from away activity. It's a great one to play. With younger students, you can have them bring in a stuffed animal and also talk about, would these species be found here? Are they found in our area? Are they found in Canada or from elsewhere? And if they aren't found here, if they were introduced, what kind of impacts might they have, like the rabbit on Vancouver Island, for example? And so now what we're going to do is a really quick quiz. This is something we do virtually with students. We can do virtual presentations. It's really fun. And I'm going to show a picture and I will give you a clue and put in the chat if you think it's from here or from away, and if it's invasive or introduced and non-invasive, meaning it doesn't cause harm. So native, invasive, or introduced, and what is it? And I will read a clue in case you don't know this plant. I was planted in a backyard pond after being purchased at a garden center, but my seeds floated away after a rainstorm, and now I am growing all over a marsh. I can't see the chat, but I see some numbers going up. So I'll give the reveal. This is good practice for our quiz for later when you can actually win prizes. So this is invasive and it is, oops, yellow flag iris. I couldn't see the name there. All right, so the next one, here we go. Native, invasive, or introduced. I provide a winter food for hoofed animals, and my berries are a source of nutrients to birds in late summer. Indigenous people use the juice to treat numerous ailments, and my fruits are used in soups, stews, and dried cakes. I see the numbers going up in the chat, and it is native, Saskatoon or serviceberry. So if there's a lot of traditional uses by Indigenous people, it's a very good indication that it is probably a native plant. And one last one. I am a beautiful flowering plant, but I can't seem to grow well outside of a well-tended garden. Native, invasive, or introduced. Introduced meaning not invasive, but not from here. And this is a non-native, so it's introduced, but does not spread and cause harm, so it's not considered invasive, and that's a peony. So this is a fun game that we do with regional invasive and native species in your area that our amazing facilitator, education facilitator Jen does with students. And we have this Invasive-Wise Education program that I welcome all of you to join. And invasive species is a really big issue, and with so much eco-anxiety People might wonder, why would you want to teach about it? But it's really empowering. It helps to reduce feelings of helplessness because you can do it in your own community. You can take action and see the impacts of your actions. And the other thing is our program can support you. So we offer these virtual class presentations. We have lots of curriculum-based lessons that we can help you navigate. We can personalize and customize the support based on whatever you're interested in, starting a project or doing a Pro-D workshop for your school. And we also have lots of gifts for your students and for yourself to help with your learning and your teaching. Okay, so now on to Jade with some of the great work that she's been doing with her students.
Hi. So I'm a community educator. I'm an environmental educator, and for about the last 15 years, I guess, I've lived in 7 countries in 4 different continents and have been doing sort of environmental education. And really, invasive species was brought to me in the last 7 years that I've been living in Canada and in BC. And so, you know, I was starting out, it looks like from the responses that we've got some very knowledgeable people here, which is fantastic. But in coming into the school system here and spending time with teachers, I really thought, you know, I didn't know my conifers. I come from a deciduous forest background, and so I learn how to ID. And my thought was that there's no way that, you know, I will have knowledge to share with the people that come here. But what I've seen time and time again is that they're incredibly passionate teachers, but they're teaching so much that having the capacity really to sort of embed outdoor and environmental learning into their classrooms it's been very challenging. And I do think there's a fantastic momentum that's come about post-pandemic, or during and post-pandemic, that I would love for us to continue, where learning outside, both for the physical, social, emotional well-being pieces, but also academically, there's some fantastic research that really supports that this work is really powerful for students. And so one of the things for me, I'm dressed up here. So this is a program called Nature Through the Seasons. It's an amazing program that gets kids to visit the same place, nearby nature, whether that's, and we're very fortunate that this is effectively in the schoolyard of this elementary school where I live. That gets them really connected to place. And so I think that's one of the key things is, you know, learning your local native species and the ones that you might see on day to day, and then also the invasive species that you'll see on day to day. And today I'm here as the spring sprite. And now a lot of the teachers that I've initiated this program with are now doing their own sort of thing where they visit the same tree. So this is our birch tree. This is our tree that we've rather than taking ownership of, which is a very colonial thought, we take responsibility for. We investigate, we say hello to her, we ask how she is, how she's feeling today. We look at all of the different other beings that are the lichen and the moss that are growing upon her. We look at how her canopy changes over the days and the ground. And it's really just this fantastic opportunity to build relationship. And so we look for invasive species around here, and we watch how she changes through the seasons. And I think that, you know, invasive species, climate change, loss of biodiversity, like some of these are very heavy subjects. And I think some of the sort of earlier sort of mentality was like no doom and gloom before grade 4, right? There's been a lot of that in the sort of pedagogy, and I do concur, but it doesn't mean that we can't introduce quite complex topics or things in a way that just feels good, rather than focusing on the bad things happening, of being like, these native species need uplifting. We care for them. We'll check out how they're doing. We monitor them and share our love and affection for them. And in doing so, we're a part of the solution rather than the problem. So this is what I'm doing with these kids and their relationship to this place, this bit of forest that they normally just play in, has become this intentional piece of that's connected to them personally. And if we move on to the next slide, I have this is an audio quiz for you. So again, this is connected. I know Jess here, some of the programs that are connected through community groups. So this is my suggestion as well. I see some HCTF educators here as part of the Wild BC and connected to the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation. But whether it's your local invasive species society or other environmental nonprofits, reach out. There's a potential for collaboration on funding. There's a potential for more time and capacity to support. But I love technology. I've always been a big fan. My dad designs 3D technology, so I spent my whole life attached in a way. But I also love nature. And so one of the things I'm doing, firstly, we've got a food cycler in the back there. That's an indoor composter. And that was free for this classroom through a Learning for a Sustainable Action grant, Learning for a Sustainable Future grant. We're going to talk about that later. But I just wanted to point it out because it's there. I'm here with some grade 3/4s who have been making interpretive signage. So we have a wetland that wraps around our city. It's the busiest accessible trail, and particularly during COVID, it was just jam-packed. It's paved, it's flat, it is truly accessible, goes straight from downtown and wraps around. And it goes through really sensitive wetland ecosystems for enormous numbers of migratory birds, for all kinds of amphibians. We have a snake, a common garter snake hibernaculum that once a year comes out with thousands of snakes all moving around and sliding around and making their snake love. And so it's a really interesting place, but it is busy. It's people, cyclists, people on foot. There's trash sometimes. And so with these students, what we were doing, and we focused on the native species here, but what's going to happen is there'll be signage posts put up around, and these recordings are linked to a website, and we're in the process still. There's going to be a QR code which goes on the post, and then anyone can scan that if you have a phone with a camera built in, which I think the vast majority of the population do now, and you scan it with your camera app, and it goes straight to this audio recording. And these are my grade 3/4 students playing a Who Am I guess game. Can you guess the native species they're talking about? Stephanie's going to play it.
Who am I? Some people say I look just like a pterodactyl when I fly. I'm becoming rare because it is getting harder to find quiet, undisturbed habitat. I'm good at standing very, very still and at sneaking silently through shallow rivers, streams, and wetlands as I hunt. I eat small fish, insects, frogs, and even small mammals and birds. My big beak is very sharp. I use it to catch and stab my prey. My neck is long and curvy. My legs are long and skinny. I have a special tuft of feathers on the back of my head that look like a ponytail. My color is bluish gray. I am very tall when standing in the water. Who am I? Great blue heron. Fed by Ella and Timber.
How sweet is that? And so you can introduce the concept of invasive species whilst creating these beautiful things. So, when these are published, they're going to be a legacy project for our community. We are going to have a feature on the local radio station and in the local newspaper. And it's really just a good news story. And it highlights, whether it's for locals or tourists alike, the importance of these beautiful species and the biodiversity that we have there. We have about 12 so far, and I'm hoping to build on this project year after year because the signs don't take up much space, and it's a really fantastic thing. And you can also, perhaps with older students, talk about invasive species. You could put the sign, obviously we want to get rid of it, so we don't necessarily want a sign saying this is an invasive species, because you hope that eventually they won't be there. And I'll talk about some more actiony pulling type scenarios next, but it's really powerful and empowering for students to learn about their environment in a way. And look, I have a fancy microphone because I do a podcast, but it was $100. Again, one of the grants I'm going to talk about later could potentially set you up for this, and you could just do it with a cell phone and a regular computer. The piece of software I use to record is called Audacity. It's free, and so there's all these options for doing these things, and also particularly with older students as they progress. These are young, but if you've got kids who are really into technology, which they kind of all are, this is really a beautiful opportunity for them to use their skills and move forward. Okay, if we move on to the next slide. So here's now with my oldest students, actually not oldest, but grade 9s, who have been, they didn't want to be, they didn't want to put their phones away. So we were doing water shed education. We were looking at invasive species as part of that, both aquatic and flora. And so I was like, okay, so I want you to take pictures. We split them up into groups of like, let's imagine that we're delivering a paper, a scientific paper on this work. Here's that we have to have an introduction, a methodology, a discussion of a sort of investigation, and then a discussion of the results and a conclusion. Split them up into groups. They had to take pictures that represented their stage, and then they are audio narrating over that. So we end up with this, short video with all of their own creations of their understanding of what happened and to share it. I'm doing another one at the moment where we're going to create booklets or field guides that the students are going to use from photographs they've taken, sketches they've taken, and we're going to take it to our local farmers market in the summer and share these booklets out with our local community, because a lot of people actually don't have this knowledge. It's not that people don't care, they just don't know. And so with this student-led initiative where they can sit at a market stall and say, hey, just so you know, that species is actually, invasive and now competes our native plant species in the wetland and is a threat to our amphibian populations here. There's amazing opportunities for, rather than just top-down, teacher-led, to have this bottom-up, grassroots, student-led initiatives. So we've been taking action that way. On to the next one, please. Okay. Settle in. It's a movie. It's like 6 or 7 minutes long, but I was going to show parts of it, and I really just feel like we should show the whole thing. This was a collaboration between Community Project of Wildsight, of our local Invasive Species Society, CSIS, Jess Booth's in the Columbia Shuswap Invasive Species Society, who provided the equipment and a bunch of information to help us guide this. This was the result of a prep lesson indoors, a full day field trip, and a follow-up to do some cool editing. But everything you see here was student created, student edited, and it's pretty fantastic. Oh, player. Thanks, Stephanie.
Belt with the determination of defeating some invasive plants.
Recently, that area has been taken over by many invasive plants, but we had our eye on 3 in particular.
Suspect number 1, blueweed. Though it's a nice looking flower in the spring and summer, this invasive plant has been popping up over the past years and making it hard for other plants to grow.
Suspect number 2, the spotted knapweed. This trickster has many seed pods in it, and each containing up to 140,000 seeds, which means it's easy to spread. Aside from that, they also release poison through their roots, making it impossible for other plants to spread.
So not cool.
Goodbye, invasive species!
Suspect number 3, the mullein. Like the blueweed, mullein drops its seeds and is very quick to spread. They are slowly taking over other plants by the green belt.
So we walked down to the greenbelt and pulled out these annoying plants so the other plants can grow.
How did we do it? Well, we just grabbed a garbage bag and went to an area with invasive plants, and then we just pulled them out of the ground.
And was it easy?
Yeah, it was really easy, because all you had to do is grab the plant, rip it out, chuck it in the garbage bag. That was about it.
Hi kids, it's Grandma Melly here. Today you're going to learn how we got rid of the bad plants.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Margaret.
Remember, make sure they don't pop or else the seeds will get everywhere anyways.
Boom, you're done.
Remember, this is a very easy thing, and it helps make the world a better place.
Also, do not compost any of the seeds as they will get out. And make sure you put this sticker on the bag.
Bye, kids, and remember, be an eco-superhero.
No puppets were harmed during the making of this video. Goodbye.
Our first reason we did this is to let the native plants thrive and to get rid of the bad plants because the bad plants are taking over the good plants' territory.
Another reason we did it was to help the environment and the ecosystem here in Roseland, because these plants are invading large areas of land and ecosystem. Within them are being killed because they don't know how to fight back.
Our third reason is to keep a healthy population of animals and insects. Because these ecosystems are dying, insects like bees cannot survive without the right habitat and have not adapted to this new environment.
Our fourth reason is to make sure that the invasive species do not spread and create more of them. We need more people to help take out the invasive species before they grow out of control.
If we don't act now, the invasive plants will grow and the bees won't pollinate and our ecosystem will cease to exist. Now I'm gonna spit a couple bars. Yeah. Helping the bees by removing invasive species. It's annoying like psoriasis, it keeps on spreading and spreading like coronavirus. Just like the song, you just stick with the flow. Removing these species is the way to go. Invasive plants need to take a seat. Removing them while I find a bad plants need to die. They're making other plants cry. That's a big sack, but thanks to us we can say goodbye. Yellow flag, iris to blue weed. We won't stop until our ecosystem is freed. These plants keep on rapidly growing. The population of these plants are overflowing. Some plants are toxic like the bars they spit. They don't belong here, they just don't fit. Bad plants need to die. They're making other plants cry. That's a big sack, but thanks to us we can say goodbye. This is just the beginning of war. These plants are done for. These plants need to go. Do we want them? Heck no. People say, can we keep this plant? I say no, we can't. Dad asked if mom was good, yeah? I replied with a no. Bad plants need to die. They're making other plants cry. That's a big sack, but thanks to us we can say goodbye. Hey.
In total, we collected 8 bags full, but we also collected knowledge to share that will help our local wetland ecosystem. See you later, bad plants.
What did we do?
But make sure to bring a plastic bag because of where you left.
All right.
Take two.
No, we're not going to pause it. I'm just going to say,
oh God.
Cut.
Cut.
I'd love to say that it was the students' idea to do the Star Wars, but it was actually mine. I've always wanted to create something with the Star Wars. Okay, so I hope everyone enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed making it and doing it. And for example, the person that did the narration at the end didn't want to be on camera, so there was a space there. Some of the kids actually did the most incredible PowerPoint presentation, but we had a technical hiccup and it didn't make it in, but everything there was scripted and written by the students. I don't know if you saw that there was a student at the beginning that was maybe struggling to read a little bit, and that student has historically not wanted to be involved in any kind of public speaking, but A, we got to do a couple of takes with video, and secondly, it was just an amazing thing to see that student say, hey, I don't normally find these things comfortable, but doing this and having the opportunity to practice has made me a more confident reader. And the other student right at the end, Connor, I have to give him, like, he wrote that rap. His friend composed the music for it on an app on their iSchool iPads. And that Connor was really not engaging with school at that time. And he won't mind me sharing, I've known him actually for 7 years, an amazing student. Because he had a feeling that the way that they were learning, it didn't speak to his artistic sensibilities or his expression. And so this was the most amazing way. The teacher cried. The teacher cried when we did this because he'd been so disengaged with learning for so long. And then to come up with this with zero, like, it's like, I'm going to do a rap for the end. She was like, yeah, okay. I thought it was incredible. And now that student is involved in, like, heavily involved in music and drama. And it's absolutely just being an incredible student at high school. So firstly, yeah, create action projects. With older students, it could be collecting. We needed more bags. We ended up with more bags. We had to stuff them, and transporting them was quite difficult by the end. We really went for it. And one thing we didn't do was a before and after picture. But if you look online and connected into Indigenous perspectives, there's lots of, we were getting rid of mullen. There's lots of sort of therapeutic potential for that. So there's options if you do it properly, where you could, you know, with some older students, you create salves or create some products, as long as you're keeping it really, really safe. So there's just so many different ways that you can engage them. But these students were incredibly proud of the work they did. I was incredibly proud to be a part of it. We were supported with the equipment and some knowledge from our local Invasive Species Society. And it really was just a good news story. And I think this is what we need, is when we take action, we feel positive about the future. Moving on, please. I think that might be it for me for a minute. Yes. Thanks, Stephanie.
I could keep watching that all the rest of the day, though, Jade. That's so great. And I love, it's so inspiring and so creative. It's a big project to see the end point. And I think it could be something that could be planned out, or you could do little pieces of it. It doesn't have to be such a huge thing, right? Just to start small with some you know, a little bit of research about some native species, making a little recording, doing some sketches, and yeah, bringing the technology in, doing some you know, I love how the students had so many different ways to express it. So that is just fantastic. And so what I'm going to be doing now quickly is a little bit of a smorgasbord of ideas that you can just take away with to do some activities around Invasive Species Action Month, which is right now, the month of May, but any time moving forward. So as we talked about, getting to know your place is the best way to know what's here, create those observation skills, what's here, what's not found, what shouldn't be here, what's invasive, how we can make a difference. But this kind of action project is not always about removing invasive species. There is a lot that you can do just by getting to know all the things that you can do to prevent invasive species from arriving in the first place. And this is Jen Hegan doing some that From Here From Away game, virtual presentation with some students, making it really fun, learning what's in their area before they go outside. So one way that invasive species are introduced is by people letting loose their pets, like European rabbits. Wall lizards in my area are spreading like crazy. These started out in people's homes or on small farms. Goldfish are another one that's become a really big problem in BC and in other areas. So one action is to learn about how to be a responsible pet owner and why it's important to don't let it loose. Because this little goldfish, there we go, once let into the wild, gets very, very big, does not even need a male to reproduce, spreads like crazy, is a very messy eater, causes siltation and rips up the food, eats everything for other species. So learning that you should alternatives to letting it loose if you don't want to keep your goldfish anymore is really important. We have a brand new book, hot off the press, available in our store. Also available if you're a primary teacher and want a virtual reading of it, we can do that and teach your students about this book is so beautiful artwork. It's really fun. It's so well written, written by Craig Stefani, who's our outreach lead. And along with some Invasive Species Council youth volunteers. So this was a very much like Jade showed, a grassroots effort to create something, and it's so great. So that's something fun way to take action and to learn more. We also have an activity where you can do an audit of your school, where the pets are, what's going to happen to them over the summer holidays, and make educational posters that could be posted in your community or maybe even at pet stores about how to be a responsible pet owner and don't let it loose. Something very simple that you can do as well is do a bit of research. What's invasive in your area? What are the impacts? How can we prevent it from spreading? So this is a really popular one, just to a most unwanted poster. And we can provide you with these. These are in draft form, but we have them available if you want, or make your own template in French or English. And then getting outdoors and just making those close observation, connecting to place, learning to slow down and observe, even in the schoolyard, is a great way to start to learn about what's native and invasive. And you don't need to know the you don't need to be able to identify the plants. That can come later. So it's just about making those close observations. So this is an activity called the Amazing Adaptation Hunt. It's like a scavenger hunt, but you're looking specifically at features that allow a plant to spread and take over, different adaptations that it has. And also spending a little more time being curious, sparking that inquiry. And this is, oops, my cursor. Available also in French. So if there's any French immersion teachers, we try to create student pages that are available in French. And Jen can also do presentations, virtual presentations for students in French. So for younger students, we also have an activity called Be a Plant Detective. And this is looking a lot more closely at one particular plant. So and looking at its stem, its leaves, its flowers, and its interactions in its ecosystem. Where is it growing? What's it interacting with? A little bit like Jade talked about with the tree that they were taking care of. You could maybe choose a plant to take care of and to learn about. And then maybe even, it's in French as well, and eventually maybe trying to identify, is it from here or from away? And for secondary students, or it could be adapted for younger students, you could make much closer observations by doing some sampling using scientific methods like transects and quadrats. You can use a hula hoop to help focus your area and look really closely what's found there. You can do it by, plant A, plant B, plant C, or maybe grasses versus other types of plants without knowing what the actual being able to identify them. The point is, don't let lack of knowledge about being able to identify them prevent you from making those closer observations. You can always identify them afterwards. Sometimes if you know what something is, it actually can prevent you from looking more closely. So take away like, oh, that's a, red flowering currant, and just look closer at it, see what you can find. And then, there are many different apps to be able to identify if it's native or invasive. There's also a great way to take action is to contribute your observations to community science. And so there's a couple of apps that we recommend. One is the Report Invasives BC, if you're in BC. This goes to provincial specialists, so they know where, and managers, so where they may need to take action. It can be a great way to find new infestations of invasives. And then iNaturalist, many people have probably heard of. I just checked today, and there are now 6.5 million users across the world, 139 million observations. And all of these observations are contributing to our knowledge about biodiversity. And there's a project that you can join called I Spy and Identify that is for any observation in Canada that is an invasive species. It contributes to that. So this can help with early detection and also just helping our general knowledge about biodiversity. We have some, there's a URL on this slide, and we'll put it in the chat on how, with some short videos to know a little bit more about these apps and how to use them. And we also have a lesson plan in draft form that walks you through in more detail on how to contribute to community science with your students. And then, of course, there's the removal and restoration. And this is, it's amazing to see how our efforts can bring about such positive change. It isn't always like this picture. Sometimes it takes a lot of going back and continuing to pull. This is English ivy at Uplands Park in Oak Bay in Victoria region. It's a picture of me, but there were other students involved, but they didn't have the photo permissions. This was in the winter, and then in the spring, that's all native fawn lilies. All they needed was some light and some space, and they are still thriving in this area. And we have a lot of resources that can help you to become land stewards, take care of the land. So on the right, you see the spotted knapweed. We have a whole series of invasive species teaching cards that you can use in a variety of our lesson plans with little fast facts about different species, and they're regional, so you can have the common things that you would find in your area to learn a little bit more about. Also, the Grow Me Instead guide is fantastic on our website. So it's a way to find, many of our invasives started out being planted in gardens and then spread. And so the Grow Me Instead guide is a good resource if you want to remove invasives and think about what else you might want to plant in its place that is native or a non-invasive alternative. We also have a series of cards that we're in the process of developing that are for educators and for students, like this baby's breath one that has some facts, a little bit of, if it's green means it's safe for students to remove, yellow is maybe use some caution with gloves, and red is don't remove them. So these are some of the resources that we'll be having available for you very soon. Okay, and so to get us all observing a little bit more closely, we're going to put you to work here. So yeah, so that was just a little snapshot of some activities. We have many, many more, and now we're going to participate in this one of looking a little more closely. Jade, do you want to give some instructions? Everybody get out a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
And get a writing utensil.
Indeed, pencil's ideal, but and we're going to keep it you know, short and sweet, but so many ideas. If that, you know, just touching the surface, that's an amazing opportunity, Stephanie. So much effort has gone into curating those resources. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, if you do have a letter piece of paper, that's ideal. You could try smaller, but you might find it. And I do this in various ways with students. You know, I find a clipboard goes a long way. A clipboard, a pencil, or a bit of paper, back to that intention setting, can make just a time when they're sort of not paying attention or just mucking around with friends into a moment. And I found with students, getting them to sit still is challenging. I was probably the most reluctant to sit still human for my teachers. So I know exactly what it's like to be somebody who finds it difficult to sit in a classroom and to sit still. So this for me is a really amazing way to watch those students thrive, because they can sit where they want outside, and you know, nobody's noticing if they're sort of scuffing their toe while they draw or doing these things. And you can utilize this for literacy, numeracy, art, so we can label and identify if we start doing some sort of field sketching. But really here, we're just sort of going to pay attention, and it's all about scale. So I normally start in the left, so you get whatever your bit of paper is, and you draw the exact box. I've gone like this, so the longer side is across. And we're going to start in the top left-hand box. Nice demo, Stephanie, thanks. And we are going to sketch something, an area, in this case, a sort of patch of a plant. in landscape form. So we're going to try and sketch the sort of wide view of what we see right in front of us at the back of the picture and left and right. So Stephanie's going to demonstrate. So this is just in your top left quadrant, just in your top left. And for the purposes of making sure that people don't get caught up on the fact that they are not an artist, I can't draw. Firstly, these sorts of opportunities to practice drawing are a super way, and sketching are a super way to encourage kids who don't feel like they excel creatively. I don't think of myself as a natural artist. Very unfortunately, had a high school art teacher who was quite mean to that fact. And it's taken me a really long time to get over that, and nature journaling and recording the things that I'm looking at have been incredibly important in my life and in my relationship building. So we have, does anyone know what plant this is? You can pop it in the chat. Okay, well, we'll sketch it first and then we'll move on. We'll see whether things become. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 minutes and 3 minutes only to sketch. Nice. Amy, Jessica, and Roland, 10 out of 10. Ooh, good question, Susan. We might dive into that in a minute. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes starting now to sketch this entire image just in the top left-hand box of your sheet. And you can do rough sketch. You could try and be as accurate as you want. You can kind of just do outline like I am planning to. But we're trying to get all of the information into our page. That's 30 seconds gone. What information can we get from looking at this overall picture? I feel like I should do some sort of Bob Ross, like sort of gentle, soft instructions, just happy little towers. Happy little towers, but are they happy? Like the pointy shapes. Got a minute and a half left, halfway there. That's the best that you can do. There's no right or wrong. "45 seconds left. "10 seconds, just put the finishing touches. Three, two, one. Okay, fantastic. I don't know if anyone feels comfortable to share. I've got my background on. Let's see how untidy my office is and how much of it I'm going to show you. But how do I? Choose virtual background. Let me show you. Okay, so I've done mine in a really small one, but because I'm just in pencil, for me, it was kind of important. I've mentioned that it's purple at the front. They're big purple flowers, and they sort of have these pointy tops with this sort of circular cylindrical shape. There's a big hedge at the back. And what I found interesting, I don't know if anyone else noticed, but all through the central part of the field was the color purple, like the tips of these. So for me, it seemed like the whole area really was taken over with this one plant. Anybody else want to share theirs if they feel comfortable? Oh, hi, Brenda. Do you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to spotlight you one by one, and you can scoot your thing across. Oh, nice. Sketching area, a patch of plant with a beautiful, thank you. I'm going to remove the spotlight. Who else? Jess is there. I'm going to spotlight you, Jess. Can you show us yours? Oh, nice. Excellent detail in the shape of the animal, of the plant there. Jennifer? Oh, somebody's done a bit of field sketching before. I like it. And Stephanie, did you have yours too?
Yeah, mine is kind of abstract.
Oh, abstract is lovely. Oh, but you've got the shape of that front plant. I can see that, of the way the leaves are coming out. Okay, beautiful. Thanks so much. So for me, and I do this as well, you could do this with the landscape that different animals are living in, and then zooming in. But for me, this just gives me a lot of information that there's a lot of this stuff, whatever it is purple loosestrife. And that it seems very healthy. And it's quite attractive, isn't it? And that's one of these things, is they lure us in with their beauty, and then it's tricky. But okay, so that was your top left. Top right is going to be a close-up. So then zooming in, changing the scale of the environment that you're in. It's like, okay, so rather than trying to get as much information in about things without detail, perhaps here, now I'm going to put in a little bit more detail on this particular plant. So I can start to see its identifying features. Okay, I'm going to give you another. Do you know what? I'm going to give you 1 minute. You've got 1 minute, 1 minute to do this close up. Top right box, minute starts now. I'm actually going to turn my whole page. I'm not sure. Are we giving Bob Ross a run for his money? Halfway there. I'm going to give you an extra 5 seconds because I need an extra 5 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that one was harder. That was harder. Oh, I've got to turn this thing off, don't I? Teach me for not tidying my office before I do things. But my teaching basket's just full. My pillowcase for doing secret looking at and finding things. Okay, so this was mine. Again, because of the lack of detail, I wanted to sort of show people. So I was trying to show the sort of stripiness of the sort of neck of the flower here. I wanted to, oh, what am I doing? Point to the fact that there were 6 leaves, purple leaves, and that then they had this sort of stamen coming out that was red with a yellow thing. And if I had more time, I was going to write it looks sticky. The yellow bit looks sticky because I guess that's part of its allure. And then it had quite a thick, strong stem. Anyone else want to hold theirs up? Go on, Stephanie. I'm going to highlight you, spotlight you. Oh, very nice. Yeah, if you go in slowly and then hold tight.
Yeah, I like how you wrote words on yours, and I think that's really helpful too. I just was kind of sketching, but I think it's amazing. Oops, am I muted?
No, I hear you.
Oh, it just told me I was muted. How much you notice more about by just even sketching a photograph, looking at the flower parts and the shape and design.
Exactly. And, I've been looking at native plant workshops because I'm trying to build a really healthy pollinator garden that supports lots of biodiversity. And there's a lot of thing about the shapes of flowers, right, that attract different pollinators, ones with long proboscis or with short beaks, or the fat butts of a furry bumblebee. So there's lots of different ways that that plants do things, and even recognizing in these plants what these invasive species, what successful attributes they have that really are so successful, helps us to say, well, hey, if that's what's helping it to succeed, how can I mimic that or replace that, plant this instead of that with something native? Okay, thank you for participating. Bottom left square, got the next picture coming up.
Now we've got the lookalikes. So it's the bottom left and right. So this is where your observation skills are so important. And some things, this is where knowing how to identify species can become very important, because you want to make sure you are actually removing an invasive species and not a native, because that actually happens sometimes. So these observation skills are really important. So we're going to ask you, which one is the purple loosestrife, left or right? And what differences can you see or sketch between the two? Because the one on the right is a native plant.
Okay. Anybody know what the plant on the right is? Anyone take a guess? You got it, Amy. Nice work.
Yeah, okay. And I thought it was great that earlier on when we asked what it was, that Susan thought maybe it was fireweed. So great guess. And yeah,
this is
we anticipated that.
Those colors are in there. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 1 minute per image. We're going to do bottom left first, 1 minute, and then bottom right. And we're just going to dive into what makes them different. So bottom left, purple loosestrife. Here we go. Got a different angle here, so you can sort of see right into the center, which is really quite helpful. Looks a bit alien in there, doesn't it? Like Remy Rodin's song. I'm starting to really notice as well the decoration or the ornamentation on the each individual petal. It's quite distinguishing, actually. Halfway there. What key information do you want to express? Ten seconds. Okay, time's up. I'll show you. Actually, let's just dive right into your bottom right screen. We're going to do 1 minute on fireweed. Ten seconds. Okay, so just going to do a really quick one of mine. But the things that I really picked up were that on the loosestrife, it's purple. But the each of the stamens, and again, I'm not actually a plant expert. I'm a fossil person, really. The dead things make more sense to me. But you know, you can look up in prep, whether you're teaching science or biology or anything, you can look up the basic principles, you know, structures in a plant. But for me, the pokey, sticky, long things in the center of this plant are all yellow. And then I get to fireweed, and actually the stamens are like an octopus arm, and they're all individual and they're white, and only the tip is yellow, and the leaves of the petals are like wide, I wrote fat, but what I meant is sort of wide rounded leaves. So it really makes a sort of when you look up really close, it makes a big difference. Okay, I had my mess from you. Does anyone else want to share? Did anyone else see anything different that they think now will be like, if they see fireweed up close, that they'll be able to differentiate?
Yeah, the flowers are so different. The number of petals and the fruits are also different. I did not include the fruit of the fireweed in this, but if you just have flowers, now I'm not going to forget the difference.
Yeah, number of petals and stamen, 100%. Yeah. And so, you know, we can look at things from a distance. You could also do the whole 4 quadrants on one plant and then the next and do a comparison. But yeah, shape of petals is really important. So these are just really fun ways that you can just engage your students in some inquiry and really attention focusing work, build their descriptive skills, build their sketching skills, build their literacy skills if they're naming, utilize these images to go back or take pictures to ID the plants using field guides or apps. It's a really fantastic way to continue building relationship. So with 5 minutes left, 4 minutes, we'll scooch on. Thank you for participating.
Yeah. Thank you. That was so great. I'm going to go outside after this and do some sketching of real plants, I think. So don't take off early. We've got prizes for you at the very end. So we're going to zip through this next little bit, which is basically where you can find some of our resources. So I'm going to just show you, if you are a non-formal educator, share with the educators that you work with. If you go to, let me remove all these little people here. So if we go to our website, which is right here, bcinvasives.ca, go to For Youth, For Educators, and this is where you can join the program. You can click on this link, brings you to a little form to fill out to get that kind of personalized support and virtual presentations or Pro-D support, project planning support. This is the really cool thing, is these are all curriculum linked activities. You can sort and search by all these different attributes. So let's say you just want to do an outdoor activity for any age, and then it sorts through it. Or let's say we want to do a grade 5 outdoor activity. So then you have your lesson plans right here that have lots of links, copy pages, curriculum links, inquiry questions, procedure, materials, everything you need to know is right there, and connected activities and extensions. So another thing I want to point out is we go to our YouTube channel, and then you can go to playlists and go to the Invasive-Wise Education playlist. We've got lots of really short videos that are fun to share with students. We've got some video demos of some of the activities. This Invaders, Invasive Species in BC is a great intro to what invasive species are in 1 minute and 43 seconds. Here's the how to report invasives. So the YouTube channel is great. There's also past webinars there. Yeah, and then I want to quickly go back to the PowerPoint just to show you that coming soon, we're very excited. We have this great partnership with Outdoor Learning Store. We're creating some kits, like an educator kit on teaching about invasive species. This will be coming soon. We have a take action guide against invasive species, educator's guide that's in draft form, and an aquatic invasive educator guide. We're going to have signs for schools, an area that they're taking care of, that'll show that they're doing to honor the work that they're doing, connecting to the land and helping to restore it. Boot brushes, great stickers. So we've got so many great things that we already have and that we're creating even more. Okay, there we go. Jade.
Really quickly. Hey, if you want support for funding for equipment and educators, community educators, or resources, there's a couple of options. The Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation is BC specific. There are GO grants that help support outdoor biodiversity field studies. That's transportation, project materials, or program fees. They have to be linked to biodiversity, and I think invasive species work could be just perfect for this. And then there's LEAP grants. If you're a high school teacher, we know we had a couple of those. Those are up to $5,000, and I'm doing one at the moment with some students on watersheds, and we're doing some invasive species plant removal and planting native species back in there to enhance some turtle habitat. So absolutely great options. Another one, if you're looking for more like tech, so maybe some things that can connect in there, this is Learning for a Sustainable Futures Action Fund. It's up to $500. It's closed right now, but it reopens in the fall, so for the next school year. And whether you're greening your schoolyard or motivating your community somehow, so they would pay for maybe the field guide printing or the time to have an expert come in, or some of the equipment or resources you need to do your own action project, as long as it's student-led, which we hope we've given you some ideas for how that can happen. It's a really great option as well. The links maybe will be coming into the chat, or if not, I can pop them in just a second.
Okay, so we've given you a lot of ideas, and we hope that you will try something out, that we've inspired you to try an activity for Invasive Species Action Month and beyond. If you want to share what you plan to try with your learners, please do so. It's like making that commitment of what you hope to try next, maybe even tomorrow. And then, oh, okay, it's quiz time. Thank you so much for all your patience and staying with us for so long on this sunny May day. So we have 2 gift certificates for $25 each to the Outdoor Learning Store. Amazing resources there. And then we have 2 packs for educators on teaching about invasive species, including the Screen Teacher publication, as well as some other tools. So what we're going to do is show you some lookalikes of a native and invasive species, and they are labeled A and B, and you have to report the invasive. So when I press the next slide, you will see a pair of species, and you will write in the chat if it is the invasive species is labeled A or B. And the first person to have the correct answer will win. We're going to do the outdoor learning store first, and then we'll alternate. One outdoor learning store, one ISCBC educator pack, and then so on. So are you
Awesome.
ready?
And you can use the $25 gift to buy Teaching About Invasive Species, edited by Tim Grant. It's in the store as well. But sorry, Stephanie.
All right, get ready. Here is your first one.
Ooh. Report the invasive. Drum roll.
The drum roll. Okay, the invasive species is the red-eared slider, and you can see one of them has red on its ear area, where an ear would be, and that is B. A is our native pond turtle, the western painted turtle.
Beautiful. So I think Tiffany Branke, you were first. We'll be sending you an email after this. We'll get your email from the registration list. Thank you so much.
All right, ready for the next pair. Here we go. Slide number 2 for an educator pack. Which berry plant, both have delicious berries. One is native, one is invasive. I see the chat numbers going up, up, up. So the invasive one is on the left. It's A, and that is Himalayan blackberry. It has 5 leaflets, really thorny stem. The other one has 3 leaflets. It's our native trailing blackberry and a thinner stem, usually on the ground, kind of a dusty, milky kind of coating. All right.
Congratulations, Heather Fife. You were fastest, quick on the draw. There.
Awesome.
And just for the record, when I was learning these, I couldn't ID them either. And I think modeling that we don't know things with our students and saying, I'm not sure, let's find out together, has been an amazing way. And that Teaching About Invasive Species book has helped me learn to do things, and the website to ID things. Okay.
Okay, next one. Number 3 for another outdoor learning store gift certificate. Which one is the invader?
They're both so cute.
They're both so cute. You can't see the size comparison. One is a lot bigger than the other. One is very shy and one is very not shy.
Okay, drum roll.
Okay, so the invasive species is B, the eastern gray squirrel, which can also have black fur, but it's the same species. Native in Ontario and other parts of Canada, but not here. Introduced to Stanley Park and other places and has spread. And A is our native red squirrel.
Okay, so Heather, you were quick on the draw again, but I'm gonna share the love. I'm gonna move down to the next person who was correct. So Katie Zingle. I hope I pronounced that right for you. Katie will be emailing you. And last but not least.
Okay, here comes our last one. Both have prickly leaves. Both are green. I am not showing flowers or fruit here, so just based on the leaves. This is one where I have seen people remove the wrong one. So the invasive species is A. It is English holly. And B is Oregon grape, our native species.
So Tiffany, you were first in again, but you also #1 winner. So we're going to pass it down to Amy Pelletier. You were second in command, and you will receive a gift. So we'll send an email to all 4 of you. Congratulations. Thank you for playing.
Congratulations, everybody. Thank you so much. And yeah, stay in touch. Here's our emails. We hope that you got some new ideas and that you're ready to share Invasive Species Action Month with your learners and try out some new activities. And yeah, wishing you all the best.
Amazing.
And we'll stay on a little longer if anyone has any questions or anything like that. I'm going to stop the share now.
Thank you so much. Do honor your time. So you do have to go. That's no problem at all. And you can always send an email. Thanks, everyone.